As we just saw in the report, the King's Warden is approaching 7 million admissions. Since the Lunar New Year holiday, many are saying the atmosphere at movie theaters has noticeably changed. Is this just a temporary holiday boost or the beginning of a genuine recovery for Korean cinema? To discuss this, we're joined by Jae Soh, filmmaker and professor at Seoul Institute of the Arts. Welcome back, Professor Soh.
Hello, nice to be back.
All right, so before we go into our main topic today, we must ask you, what did you think about the news that director Park Chan-wook is going to be the jury president at Cannes?
It's about time, is my reaction. You know, he's been a darling of Cannes, Film Festival because he won the Grand Prix with the Old Boy in 2004 and also won the jury prize for, The Thirst. And then in 2022, he won Best Director for Decision to Leave. So, he's I think the representation of Korean cinema itself. So I think it's congratulations to Director Park, but I think, yeah, well-deserved as the jury president for sure.
Definitely great news. And now, Professor Soh, many say that the mood at theaters here in Korea has recently shifted. So let's talk about the domestic box office, especially with the successful movie, The King's Warden.
As the report just, showed, we're nearing, I think it's something like 6.7 million people, and I think by the weekend's end, we'll have surpassed 7 million. So it's a movie that I think nobody thought would do this well, because, a sageuk or a traditional Korean film, the last time it's done well, it's been a long time, but with the box office success of King's Warden, now it's, I think the last film that did this well was last year, I, Executioner, and then My Daughter is a Zombie was around 5 million. So I think we're seeing numbers now that are much healthier than, I would say pre-COVID levels. But I was also expecting Human to do just as well, but the box office now sitting around 1.6 million for that movie as well. So I think Korean movies are now sort of like moving into a different era where we're having sort of mid-size level films, also sort of big budget movies, and then sort of the low budget movies as well. So we're seeing a diversity of films. But I'm really happy that The King's Warden's doing well. The director Chang Jun is a graduate of the Seoul Institute of the Arts, and he's been making movies for a long time, and his wife's a really famous writer as well. So I'm really happy for him for this movie.
Right. And The King's Warden came out around a certain time during the holiday season. So should we see this success as a holiday-driven surge, or as a meaningful signal or sign that the Korean cinema is regaining momentum, do you think?
Well, if you want to compare it to pre-COVID levels, it's very low. But at the same time, compared to last year's holidays around the same time, we actually had one day less this year. But in, basically 6 days, we did 3.65 million people went to see both Human and King's Warden. And so that's about a 60% surge in the box office numbers from last year. That's a good sign. And I think also holidays are, when everybody gets together to be with family, and then you have a lot of kind of downtime to go out drinking with your friends or see friends or watch movies. So it's a very healthy sign that, audiences now are like turning to movies again. So hopefully I think we're going to turn a page and more people will go see movies. But as you know, because of things like, Netflix and things like that, people are choosing to watch movies at home.
Right. Professor Soh, you did mention the pre-pandemic levels. We did have bigger numbers in the past, but what do you say is the biggest reason for the decline in audiences at theaters? Well,
I mean, people have said it has to do with COVID, but I think the structural changes have definitely happened because of that. For example, audience behaviors have changed. Before, people were really willing to go see the new movie in the theaters. Now, I think more people are kind of staying at home to watch what's playing. And the other big factor is the price of the ticket itself. The theaters were a little greedy because they lost money, and so they really upped the price to even, I think, like 20,000 won for a movie theater on a weekend, which is too much for a lot of people because with that price you can watch it, at home for much cheaper. But the final thing is basically, I think Korean cinema was stuck in a mode of, showing certain kinds of movies, I would say, like the Roundup series, where there's a lot of, action and criminals and people fighting each other. And I think people were getting sick of those kinds of films. And now we're seeing, turning the page, King's Warden's a very traditional story about, history. And people are very hungry for other kinds of cinema. So I think right now Korean cinema is going through sort of I would say, a growing process of just changing itself to be more attractive to audiences so that they would flock to see it in a theater, for sure.
Right. And just before you mentioned ticketing prices, right? And this has obviously become a big concern indeed. But this is not just unique to Korea itself. This is more of an international situation as well. Talking about international, are there any approaches to addressing the issue of ticketing or ticketing prices that maybe even Korea could adopt?
Right. So one of the things that Korea is now looking into, the government, is sort of the subscription-based model. So it's sort of like what you pay monthly for your Netflix or your Disney Plus or Wave. They're saying that you could pay a flat fee. They haven't decided what that fee would be, and basically if you pay that, you can see unlimited number of movies in the theater. So they're pursuing these sorts of subscription-based sort of movie pass systems.
Right. Speaking of that system, I think it's actually a very good idea. I think I would definitely be one of the people who would try to watch more movies if I do pay that flat fee for that. But do you think this is going to work in Korea? Because I think it's been implemented in countries like France already. So do you think it's going to work?
Well, in France, I believe it's 20 euros, and you get to see as unlimited numbers. The way the movie tickets work is like, the distributor and the investor and the exhibitor, they sort of share this kind of model. And I think sort of the criticisms about the subscription models is coming from more the sort of the exhibition side and the side that makes the movies, because they kind of feel like, if there's a movie that, for example, is a huge hit like, King's Warden, but you paid only a certain amount of money, you're not going to get that 7 million ticket sales. So I think we're going to have to try this model, but at the same time, because so many people aren't coming to see movies in a theater, if there's a ticket that you can buy at one point and then you just could use it unlimitedly, then I think more people will flock to theaters to go see it. And I just remember the theatrical experience is really different because you're going to see it with a bunch of strangers, and then you kind of breathe with the audience and you really kind of realize something is happening that you wouldn't really necessarily get at home. So hopefully, whether it's subscription-based or a pass system, just getting people into the theaters is our main sort of, I think, goal here. Yeah.
And another proposal being discussed on the table is what's called the holdback system, which is where films would require to remain exclusively in the theaters for a certain period before going onto a streaming platform. I mean, similar to what's happening now, there are a lot of movies that are exclusive to theaters and then come out. How do you view this policy exactly?
I actually like this policy better than the pass system because what happens is, right now, every OTT sort of series that comes on, there's a big launch for it, you see it on social media, and suddenly, you're watching it that day. And I think right now, the way to sort of increase people to coming here is basically holding it back for about 6 months is what the government is proposing, I think. But of course, the streamers are really unhappy about that. And I don't know if you know about this sort of sale of Warner Brothers that's happening in Hollywood. It's a big deal between Paramount trying to buy it, Netflix trying to buy it. I just heard that Netflix just left the deal. But Netflix, if they had bought Warner Brothers, their whole system was going to be basically for movies, they're going to not show it on their streamer for a month. So they already are thinking about things like that. So this model, if it goes into implementation, I think it's a better deal because maybe even show the sort of a new series, like the first episode, in the movie theaters. If you have a system where movie theaters are now utilized as a platform for OTT to launch their new stuff, and then you hold it for, you can show it in the movie theaters for maybe 2 to 3 months, and then you actually start launching it on your platform. I think people will flock to see a new thing. But right now, the way a lot of these OTTs are working is they use basically film festivals as a launching pad. But it'd be really great if every single OTT is required by law to show a new series in a theater. And of course, they get to keep the proceeds of that as well. So I think just getting people to the theater system and the holdback system, I think, is definitely something to look into. But of course, the investors, the OTT themselves don't really like that system. Yeah.
But if that does happen, that would mean there would be some synergy between OTT platforms as well as the movies that are bound for the theaters. But last but not least, Professor Soh, which movies are you looking forward to coming up in the rest of the year? And do you think there is a chance that we will return to a 10 million admission era back again?
Sure. I think it just depends on the movie. I think as Koreans love to do, it's like they want more bang for the buck. So usually it's a movie that's kind of a grand scale, like I would say Exuma was like one example like that, or like, Avatar, things like that, like an event. So there are two movies that I want to sort of promote. One of them is Yeon Sang-ho's Colony, which is coming out really soon, and it's a zombie apocalypse. He's a director of Train to Busan, so this gentleman has done a lot of movies about sort of the apocalypse happening, like, Hell is like another example on Netflix that he showed. So I think The Colony is going to be huge with Kyu Kyo-won, Chun Ji-yeon, a lot of big stars in it. And then the other sort of big movie is The Hope, which is Na Hong-jin's new film. He's the director of The Wailing. And this movie is kind of an international cast. It has Michael Fassbender, Alicia Vikander. Also it has, Hwang Jung-min, a lot of Korean big stars. So this one's set in the DMZ, and there's some sort of virus that comes through. So it's a sci-fi movie, kind of big scale. So everybody's really looking forward to that. And I think definitely a movie worth experience to go see it theatrical. So hopefully these movies will draw audiences to come back. But I do think like there will be movies that again will hit the 10 million mark in cinema for sure.
If it's your pick, I'm definitely going to try to watch it on the big screen. And thank you very much, Professor Soh, for your insights and time today. And have a great weekend.
Thank
You too.
Professor.
Bye.
And thank you, Walter, as always. Have a great weekend and see you back next week.
See you next week.